This week, we're going to focus on that custom slider interaction. And I have a good idea of where to start with that. Let me know what you think in the chat. Hello, Matt. Hey, everybody. I did something like this for a client once where the person kind of rates how confident they feel with the content. So, a scale from 0 to 10, you drag that slider to show how confident you feel. And if your confidence level is 6 or above, maybe you dive into some more abbreviated content, or you jump right into an assessment. And if you're not feeling very confident, then it kicks you into some review content. So I think that, that might be a good way to really dive into exactly how sliders work for people who don't understand. And of course, also a good opportunity for, just learning more about variables and conditions and that fun stuff in general. So I'm sure there's going to be a minute or so delay on the chat. Just let me know what you think about that in the chat. If we get through that relatively quickly, maybe we can do another more general slider interaction with some nice artwork and text that changes as you slide. One other thing, I noticed we're getting some good questions in the questions tab at the bottom. Feel free to ask any questions you might have using that tab. And then once we're done building the interaction in Storyline, I'll answer those more general questions. I see we have some good ones about like how long does it take to learn Storyline? What do customers see as your unique business offering with e-learning and Storyline? So we have some good questions coming in. Feel free to ask them. And yeah, I want to go ahead and get started now. Feel free to follow along if you want to open up Storyline and kind of do what I'm doing. But I think it might be better just to kind of soak up the session here live. And then if there is anything particular that you want to know how to do after the fact, just check out the recording. You can skip ahead, go to the part that you want to review. Cool. All right, I'm not seeing anyone opposed to this slider idea, so I think we're going to go ahead and do that. And again, if I see questions in the chat, I'll go ahead and add them to that Ask a Question tab. Victoria just asked if I storyboard in Storyline. Just try to press that Ask a Question at the bottom and ask it there. People can vote on what they want to see answered, and we'll tackle those at the end of the session. All right, so let's dive into this. Okay, so I have Storyline open right here. All I did was start a new project, and I haven't done anything else since starting that. So I'm just going to double click on this slide to go into slide view. And for anyone who wasn't at the first session, if you have any questions related to the technical aspect of what we're doing here in Storyline, feel free to ask. And I know we have some Storyline pros in the chat as well. So if you see a faster, better way to do something or a different way, feel free to mention that in the chat too, because I think that provided a lot of value for everyone who was here at the last Storyline workshop. So the first thing I want to do is I want to change the aspect ratio of this project. You see right now it's really tall. I'm picturing something a bit more wide since I'm going to be, a slider is kind of like widescreen. So I'm going to go to this design tab right here, and then I will press this story size option. So this is something you really want to do at the beginning of your project. It's where you set kind of the artboard or the slide size for every single slide in your project. 16:4:3 is the more standard desktop e-learning size, this aspect ratio, which means for every 4 width pixels, you have 3 height pixels. So it's kind of just like the ratio. This 16:9, that's more like a video layout. I think that is the aspect ratio of a video like you would watch on YouTube or something. So we are going to go with this 16:9 aspect ratio. You see now we have a much wider screen, and I think this will work better for the slider interaction. Okay, so we'll say this is at the beginning of some review lesson. It might make more sense to do a pretest to actually see what the person knows, but instead we're going to ask them how confident they feel. So I'm going to go to this Insert tab and press Text Box, or like someone brought up at the last session, you can just put your mouse over the screen and press Control-T, and that will make a text box right there for you. So if you don't do the shortcut, you can just do Insert, Text Box, and select the screen, and we can just start typing to type our question. So how confident do you feel about the content you've learned so far in this module. So that is our question. I'm going to resize this a little bit. Here's another little tip. Once I click this and start dragging, if I hold down the control key on my keyboard, I'm not sure what the Mac equivalent is, maybe command, but you notice on the left-hand side, it starts constraining on that side as well. So that's a good way to like keep things centered. So you just press the control key. You can make this a little smaller on both sides. I want to center this. I'm going to change the font, and this is all in the Home tab. We're changing the font and the size and everything and the alignment just like we would in a word processing tool like Google Docs or Microsoft Word or something like that. So I did Control B to make it bold. I'll do text size 20. Let's do Lato font. And now I need to change that a little bit. You don't want to have, I think this is called a widow. You don't want just one word on a line that doesn't really look super nice. So I make that a little wider, and now I will just drag it up. And like we covered last week, you can constrain. You see right now it's like perfectly in alignment with where I started dragging it from. That's because I'm holding down the Shift key on my keyboard. So if I let go of the Shift key, you see it's like a little harder to line up. So just hold down Shift, it keeps it in perfect alignment. And then if you just want to really make sure it's centered, you can go to this Format tab and use this Align Center option right here at the top. Again, we highlighted this in the last session like this. I think I'll do a video about like mastering alignment in Storyline just because of how important these commands right here are. So you see it wasn't completely centered, so that's good. So now we have our question on the slide. And let me know if I'm moving too fast or if you have any questions about what I'm doing. Again, nothing super crazy right here, just throwing a text box on the screen. The next thing we probably want to do is add our slider, okay? So we'll go to the Insert tab, and then we will select this slider option right here. So Insert Slider, and you see we have 3 different options. This is just kind of how it will look visually. So I'm going to go with this top option. I think that looks the nicest with the rounded corners, a nice circle kind of handle that you'll drag. So we just press that slider option and then press anywhere on the screen to add it to the screen. Yes, Cecile, I think the alignment features where I'm highlighting those are really useful for some people. And I use those every day, every slide in Storyline. So we will definitely be using these in this session too. So we'll get more in depth a bit later. Okay, so if you're like me, this slider started really small. So I'm going to drag this corner and once again, hold down the control key to make it get wider on both sides instead of just one. And just thinking of good alignment, we want this to look generally pretty aligned with the text box. You want it to be about the same width. Is this even centered? Let's see. See, it was not centered. I used this Align Center option right here to make sure it's perfectly centered. Let's see. Yeah, so that looks, it looks pretty well aligned. So that's good. It's looking pretty short though. So we'll do the same treatment this way to make it a bit taller. This thing is looking really big. Let's see, can we change this? Okay, this thumbnail is really big. Let me see. Does anyone know if we can change the thumbnail size right here? Either way, it doesn't matter. I mean, we're gonna figure this out. So with sliders, if anyone hasn't worked with sliders, there are some very important concepts to understand with the slider. Okay, let me show you this. So right now, as soon as you add this slider to your screen, you can drag it. Okay, you see this? Oh, the yellow square. Yeah, that makes sense. Oh, perfect. Thank you. So here we go. We got some Storyline pros. Nice, people. that was great. Cool. So yeah, that was looking a little big. The yellow square right here, that's a little handle we can use to resize it. Thank you, everyone. Now, every time, okay, so look at these little dialog boxes at the top. These are really important. You see where it says start 0, initial 0, end 10, and step 1. Each of these boxes is really important to understand, okay? And the last thing you need to look at is what variable this slider is tied to. Okay, you see right now there's this slider 1 variable. if I open my variable manager, you see there's a new number variable in this project now, by default called slider1. So we're going to change this title and call it confidence level. Okay. So, and now you see right here, it will change this confidence level variable. So what this is saying right now, you see start is 0, end is 10. When this little handle is at this very first position, this variable will be set equal to 0. And when this variable is in the end position, it will be set equal to 10. Okay, so this number right here, so let me show you this. I'm going to put a variable reference on the screen. So again, if you want to display a variable on the screen, you just put a percentage sign in front of it and a percentage sign after it. And then you type in the variable with the exact same spelling and the exact same punctuation. So watch this. So you see now that, of course, that variable is set to 0, but watch when we drag this slider. So you see sliders, their entire functionality is based on the variable that they're tied to. Okay, so let me show you something else to demonstrate this. So I'm going to create a button here. Set slider to 5. Okay. And I'm going to create a trigger. So let me just tell you what I'm doing. I'm creating this button. This is just for demo purposes, so that whenever you click this button, it will set this variable equal to 5, which will in turn make this little handle go to that number 5 position. And one more thing about this, you see step right here. That's why every time we drag it 1 over, it goes up by 1. If we made that step 5, we would drag it and then it would just only jump to 5. It wouldn't go to 1, 2, 3, 4. So that's what this little step dialog box is doing right here. But we're going to leave that at 1 because that's what we want. So I'm going to click on this new button that I made for demo purposes, and I'm going to press this create a new trigger icon over here on the right to make it so that whenever someone clicks the button, it changes that variable. So since I had that button selected when I created the trigger, by default, it's when the user clicks rectangle 1. So the when right here is exactly what we want. But the action, instead of jump to slide, we want to change that action to adjust variable. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to set that confidence level variable equal to 5. So exactly like we said, now whenever the user clicks the button, that variable will be set to 5. So let's see what this does. So let's try this now. And there we go. You see, because this right here is so tied to that variable, if you change that variable using any kind of triggers, it will change the slider. So I've even, when I was starting out, I even used sliders like this to set up like progress bars and like gamified meters. And you just put like a transparent shape over it so that the user can't drag it themselves. But then all you have to do is change a variable, and this slider will automatically change. I think I set it up where it was like red down here and like slowly went to green up here. So then like as the user is doing better, the slider moves to green, and as they're doing worse, it moves down to red. So this is, I have a question about the build version of Storyline I'm using. Mine isn't completely updated because it was one of my client projects was breaking with one of the updates, but it might look a little bit different, but all of this functionality should be the same like years back. But this is the important concept. Sliders are tied to variables. So let's move forward with what we're doing here. You should have all the tabs I have, even if you have the free trial. I don't know if you have access to the full like content library and stuff, but yeah, this everything we've done so far should be possible in a free trial or in a slightly older version of Storyline. But okay, so now let's make there's obviously not much context right now. It's like, oh, how confident do you feel? Just drag this random slider. That's not super helpful. We want to be able to show we want to have some number steps on here so someone can see, oh yeah, I feel 5 out of 10 confident, 6 out of 10 confident, whatever it is. So we want to add some little lines on here that align perfectly with the different stops of the slider. Okay. Oh yeah, so good point, Katie. Maybe you might be on a different tab if you're not seeing the same options I'm seeing. So for the slider, to see these different start and initial step, you need to be on this slider tools design tab, and you need to make sure you have the slider selected to see this. Cool. All right, so the next thing I'm going to look at, because again, I want there to be a little line. Let me show you what I mean. We're going to insert a shape, and I'm just going to insert a regular little line. Just going to drag a little line. That looks way too thin. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select that little line I made, and I'm going to go to this Format tab, and then I'll click this little drop-down arrow next to Shape Outline. So now I can change the weight of this line from 1 pixel. We'll try, I think 4 pixels will probably be good. Okay, and now it needs to be a little longer. Maybe that's a little too long. Okay, so let's see how this looks at the halfway point. So notice what I did now. I selected this little line. Again, there will be 10 of these to show each of the 10 steps in this slider. I'm going to hold down Shift on my keyboard, and I'm going to select this slider. So you can see now on my timeline, I have both of these things selected. Now I'm going to use this same command up here, align center. But when you have two things selected, it will align whatever is inside the bigger object. You notice how this little line is like, inside of the bounds of this bigger shape. So what it will do is it will align this little line to the center of this bigger slider when I press that align center. So again, that probably wasn't necessary because this slider is already centered. So I could have just done the same thing here. I'll undo it. I could have just centered this to the slide, but this is an important concept, like centering things to each other. For example, if I wanted this to be aligned all the way to the right, I would align it to the right out here. You see how I did that? So let's do this. This doesn't look very good. I think I want the number 10 mark to be right here. Okay, and we want to make this all look kind of like the same color. So this track border, I'm going to use the eyedropper tool. You see, I'm in the Format tab, track border, and I'm going to use the eyedropper to make this border the same color as these little lines. And I should probably make the border a little thicker just to look more consistent. Okay. I mean, I don't want to spend a ton of time on visual design, but hopefully this will give you an idea of how I'm thinking about this kind of stuff, because now it doesn't really look great with this marker. So let's maybe make this a little bigger again. Nah. This was a good size. What color do we want this to be? So now we can, this is called the thumb. So we can change the thumb fill. Let's see how it looks using this same navy. I think this will be okay. We'll get rid of the border, maybe like a white border. Oh, we don't want to do that. But yeah, I'm just playing around with some visual design stuff right now. We're just going to leave it like this, I think. I think this is fine. And maybe we'll get rid of the track. We'll make the track fill white. Okay, this looks nice, minimal, consistent, kind of monochrome. I like this. So now I need to get 10 of these markers here. So obviously we can't really see what's going on the left right now. So I'm going to set this initial thumb value to 5. And notice now it brings it automatically to that 5 position. Okay. I selected the thumb. Okay, wait, let's see. So on the left-hand side of this Format tab, you have the thumb options, and to the right of that, you have the track options. So notice it will say thumb fill, thumb border, and then track fill, track border. So, and that's a good question, Heather. I wanted to draw attention to that. I'm holding down the Control key on my keyboard, and you can just use your scroll wheel to zoom in and out. That's really important. Yeah, thank you, Damien, for calling that out. So yeah, you use that all the time versus having to manually zoom in or out. Okay, so let's deal with these little guys. Maybe they're still a little bit too tall, or maybe we don't wind up using these at all. Maybe we just do numbers. Let me see. I want to try something. Okay, this will be good actually, because then when you notice when the thumb is over this, you'll still be able to like see it kind of like peeking out, and then there will be like the number 5 right above this. Okay. And also what I did, I moved this line beneath the slider. Okay. And I did that on the timeline. You can also do that by right-clicking and sending it to the back. So you can do right-click and do send to back. This sent it all the way to the back. Yeah, that's fine. But I think I'm going to just keep them above so that I can easily select them for now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my rightmost one. This is going to be number 10. And then I'm going to make my leftmost one over here. And again, to do that, I just hold down Shift, and then I hold down the Control key. And when I'm holding down Control, if I let go, it will make a copy. So we covered that in the last session too, but that is a very useful and important shortcut. I want to see how this will look, if it will look aligned, if this is in the 0 position. So it does not look aligned, and that's because we're using this like, that's because the aligned part will probably be out here. Let's see. Oh, it's like further over. Sorry, you see, I want these ticks to be like kind of aligned with this button. So I'm trying to get this figured out. Yeah, alignment is really important. I think when you're starting with Storyline, like it's really easy and tempting to like throw stuff on the page. But maybe, you know, seeing me fiddle around with all of this, it's like a long process to try to get some designs that like look coherent, just because you have to spend so much time working on alignment and making sure things look centered and stuff like that. So I'm sorry if this is boring you, but I think it is probably important to spend a little bit of time on. So let's see how this looks now. I think this looks centered enough now. Let's put one in the middle point and see how that looks. So, okay, so watch that. So this time I just did Control-C, Control-V to do a copy and paste. Say you did it that way and you didn't do the shift drag. Look at what we can do with these alignment tools, okay? So first I'm going to select this other line. And now, because this line segment is above this one, I can press this Align Top button, and it will align whatever is beneath to whatever is above it at the top. So watch this. So now they're perfectly aligned by the top again. I'm going to undo that. Say I wanted to bring it to the bottom. Since this one has a lower bottom, if I do Align Bottom, it will bring that top one down. So you can't see it because it's behind the slider, but it got brought down to that same spot. So again, I just really want to drive home those alignment tools. They are very important. And I'm just going to center this line segment in the middle. Let's see if this looks good at that 5 stop. Perfect. Okay. So if you like those tips about the quick alignment options, you're going to really love these distribute options. So we have this general stuff in place. So we have 3 of these lines. We need 10 of them, right? So here's what we're going to do. So I'm going to copy this line in the center, and I'm going to paste it 7 more times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. Look at the timeline now. I just created all of these line segments. I'm going to select all of them. So I hold down Shift to go from line 11 all the way to line 4. I hold down Shift and it will select all of these. If I just hold down Control, you can pick exactly which ones to select. And the same thing holds true for deselecting. So if I hold down Control and select line 5, it will deselect it. So the quick way to do this, I'm going to just select all of the lines. You see that the slider is in here. So I'm going to hold down Control and select slider 1 to deselect it. Okay, so you're probably thinking, where am I going with this? Well, the first thing we're going to do is align them all to the top so that they're not like cascading down through the slider. So we're going to go to this Format tab and press Align Top. Okay, so now they're all up on the line, but the next thing we need to do is we want them to all be spread out equally along this slider, right? So let's do this option right here, distribute horizontally. Okay, and you can tell by this icon, if you can see it, it kind of shows that things are evenly spaced. So watch this. Okay, so that is a cool trick. You can do that with all sorts of stuff. If you have buttons that you want to align nicely, like, say you have this, that you have this, you just drag the outside ones to where you want them to be, and then you can use that distribute horizontally option to just make them perfectly spaced between them. Control D will duplicate the selected object. There we go. So Control D, you don't even have to do copy paste. So thank you, Olga, for that tip. That is nice and helpful. It saves you, just one shortcut instead of two. That's nice. So I realized that my little pro strategy here isn't really going to work because of how this alignment worked out. So let me see here, because now we don't have one exactly in the center. So this thing is like between these stops, so it's not really going to work. You see? So see how this one looks. So I think the best way will probably just be to manually do this, but I hope that little shortcut was helpful. I'll just align these manually since this is the visual effect we're going for. We're going to have to do it this way. I'm not entirely sure why that math didn't work out. I'm sure someone better with math figured out what was happening there. 5 should be in the center because you have 1 for 0. Oh, that is the problem. Thank you. So I'm going to use Control D to duplicate this. Let me delete these rectangles. So right, so I had, okay, so let me actually delete this. I see what you're saying. I was using, so I don't want this to start at 0. I want this to start at 1. Right? So now I need to do that same I need to do that same distribution with these. Let's see if this works. There we go. Thank you. Who said that? Smart? Katie is smart. but yeah, thank you for that. That's a good point. So because I was using 11 stops instead of 10 because I had 0 included. So now you see if we drag these, it looks right in the center for all of them. We don't really want to see it above. So let's go ahead and select all of these lines. I'm going to group them. Now you see they're all below slider 1. Oh, grouping is important too. So to group something, you do Control G. So you see now if I move this, they're all together. It's like, and if I click it, they're all together like one object. So that's grouping. And then I'm just going to ungroup it, and now they're all beneath the slider. Okay. So you see now you can't really see it above. I think the alignment is a little bit off, probably because I had one of these ones on the left or the right a little bit off, but I think it looks pretty good for our purposes. So the next thing we need to do is we want to add this text showing the confidence level above each of these little stops. So I'm going to add a 1 right here. I'm going to give it the same font as the title font. I'll make it bold. Size 12 looks good enough to me. And then similarly, we can select this. Well, let's see. Yeah, this looks pretty centered. And then we're just going to do the same thing, Control Shift. I'm going to change this to 2. And then Control Shift, change this to 3. You notice it has a nice little guide to like tell you, okay, you're over the center of this line right now. So this is just some robotic copying and pasting I'm doing here. And then this one needs a little bit of a treatment because it's 2 digits. Okay, let's add a little bit more spacing. It's kind of like right on top of that line right now. We want to give our design a little bit of breathing room, I think. So we'll move that up a couple of pixels. I probably could have moved it up a little bit more. I think this is fine though. Maybe we'll do it up 1 more. Cool. All right, so check it out. And then again, I will put this text box back on the screen with the confidence level. So we can see that in action again. Oh, and then we have it starting at 3. I want to, oh, what did I, oh, yeah, I see. This does look a little funky. Whatever. People aren't going to give themselves a 0 in confidence. So we did a really bad job with this module. So this will have to do. Yeah, I see what happened here. Okay, whatever. You guys get the idea. You could center text in the text box rather than manually adjusting one. Yeah, the distribute horizontal tool, that's right. Cool. So here you go. You can see this in action. That this variable right here changes just as we want it to. So the next thing we want to do is probably add a submit button, and then we'll add a condition so that it takes the user to a specific scene if they are feeling 6 or above, and if they're feeling 5 or below, we'll bring them to a different scene. Okay. So we'll get rid of this little variable. We see how that's all working now. Let's add a submit button. So we'll just add a shape. We'll again do the font treatment. That's a little too big. We will center this on the screen. Let's make the shape fill the same fill color. And you notice here, shape fill is already by default this blue color. Whatever, if you've just manually changed the shape fill, the next thing you try to change the fill of, you can just press the button to change it to whatever you changed the fill of last. So it's probably pretty self-evident by the color you can see changing right there, but that's just a useful little tip or thing to know. I think I also want to move all this up now since the design is getting a little bit unbalanced now that we have this button. So we'll move this up a little bit. Yeah, I think this could still use a little bit more work with the balance, but again, don't want to spend a ton of time on it. Just want to give you an idea of the type of things I look at. Like what I'm looking at is negative space. So I'm looking at how much white here. This will be a good example. So I do this sometimes. I'll draw a rectangle, and then I can see, okay, there's this much negative space between this slider and this submit button. There's obviously a little bit more than that between. Oh wait, let's go up to this. Okay, yeah. So you see, it's about the same here. And then I also look up here. I want to make sure there's the same amount of like kind of top padding and bottom padding beneath this. So you see, I've done this enough that I guess I have a pretty decent eye for it, just because I've spent so much time working on design. But when I first started, like my designs did not turn out like this. But you want to keep things somewhat balanced. Another rule of thumb to keep in mind, like proximity, if it might make more, you might want to put this slider a bit closer to the submit button because these two things are more closely related. So just, I'm just trying to have a nice balanced slide right now, but keeping things closer to each other, that has an important, it says a lot about how those things are related. So you can use that white space to show relationships between things. So that's important as well. All right, so now we have this nice submit button. Let's make a couple of more scenes. So we'll name this scene confidence level. And the reason I'm doing this for a scene is because maybe for this, maybe if you're feeling confident, you'll have like, just go straight into the quiz. And maybe you'll have like a review scene if the person is not feeling very confident. So scenes are just a way to organize slides. So you could do all of this in the same scene and just like have it branching and stuff. But by organizing it into different scenes, it just keeps things a bit more organized and easier to manage. So this is the feeling confident slide. So how about we grab some artwork for this? Okay, so I have free pick open. Where do I have it open? So I take so many of my assets from this website right here called Free Pick. I pay, I think, like $10 a month or even less for like a yearly plan. And you can use all of these images without attribution. So you would type in something like congratulations. Or we're probably going to get some kind of like card for that. Yeah. And notice I sort by vectors. So let's look up like happy or something. So anything you see in here, you can pull out. Like say I like this smiley face in the center. I can open this up in Adobe Illustrator, pull that smiley face out, and just add it right into the course on this like, oh, you're feeling confident. Let's dive into the quiz. But you know, like something like this. Maybe this is what you would put like at the end of the quiz. But I just like some of this like artwork. Something really cool that Kath Ellis showed me, and I've used it on a project since then. If you go to this more tools option, you'll see this stories by free pick. Okay. Now you can select one of these styles and there are hundreds of illustrations all in the same style. So you can keep something really consistent across your project. These ones require attribution, but they look so good and they're so easy to change the color of right here. You can add and remove things to the background. But let's see. So we're going to go into a quiz now or some review thing since they're feeling confident. Not a pregnancy test, not quite what we're looking for. This looks like a good kind of like quiz screen. So notice the background now. It can be simple, it can be hidden completely, or it can be this more detailed one. I like this simple design. And now this color, we want to make this color consistent with what we're doing in Storyline. So I'm going to go to this shape fill and then more colors. So shape fill, click the little download, do more colors. And if we use this eyedropper on this color, we can see this hex code. So what I'll do is I'll copy this, Control C, and then I'll paste it right here into this hex code option. And you see now we have that same color. It's definitely a bit more dark and dreary than that nice vibrant blue. But now that I have this, I'm just going to download the ping file. I will show it in the folder. And I'm just going to, and normally I would run this through an image optimizer to keep my file size low, which takes a few seconds. I think it's compressedpng.com. But just in the name of keeping the session moving along, I'm just going to drag the file onto the screen in Storyline. Okay, so you notice I have this now. I'll make this nice and big over here, and then I'll add a text box right here. Like, it's time for the quiz. We'll make this a bigger text size. We'll use the Lato font. And then we'll make this much smaller, maybe 18. We're not going to make this bold. Let's make it a bit smaller, actually, 14. And then we're glad to hear that you're feeling confident. Complete this assessment to earn credit for the module. Time for the module quiz, or for the assessment. That doesn't sound very fun, but it is what it is. So again, I try to keep these. Whoops. I'm going to group those and align those to the middle of the page. You can probably align this to the middle as well. Make it a little bigger. So I know I'm moving a little bit fast here. I do want to get to the questions, and I would probably, let's see. Well, you get the idea. Oh, and you see I have this like widow right here. I want to make this text box a little bit bigger so that I don't have module down there by itself. Probably could play around with the sizing to make this look a bit nicer. Let me see. Okay, I've been moving fast. I've been working in this group, out of this group, just trying to get things aligned and spaced well, looking nice. Hopefully this gives you an idea of kind of what I do when I'm laying out a slide. Yeah. Any questions about that? How did I get the text box within another text box? I grouped it. So Control G. So right now they're separate. So I select one, I hold down Shift and select another, and then I do Control G on my keyboard, and now they're a group. So when you're working with groups, you have to be really careful about what you're selecting. You see, if I click in this, it goes right into this other text box. But if I want to move the whole thing, I have to make sure that this outer text box is selected. So if you're ever in a position like this and you're like, yeah, I want to move the whole text box, I don't want to just move this, just press the escape key. Notice I pressed it once to escape entering text. Now, if I type on my keyboard, it won't add anything. And if I press escape again, it will go to this overall group. Okay. Yeah, just a quick example. So there is that. Okay, so let's add this trigger now, so that when they press the submit button, so watch how I'm going to do this. So I'm going to select the submit button again. I'm going to create a new trigger using this little icon right here on the right. And since I had that button selected, it's automatically when the user clicks. So that's exactly what we want. The action we want to take is to jump to a scene. Okay, we want to jump to not just the next scene, we want to jump to the feeling confident scene whenever the user clicks rectangle 1. But here's where the condition comes in. We only want to do this when the confidence level is greater than or equal to 6. Okay. So maybe take a minute to soak in what I just did here. This is how you use conditions. You use conditions with variables. Okay, so you hold, did the user view this slide? Is the user's confidence level at or above 6? So you would use true, false variables, number variable. Is the user's score greater than or equal to 80%? This is how you use conditions. So we only want to jump to scene feeling confident when the confidence level is above or equal to 6. Okay, so I'm gonna press OK. I'm going to just copy this now. I'm going to press this, copy the selected trigger, and then I'm going to paste the selected trigger. So now we have 2 of the same. And I'm just going to change it right here in this panel. Instead of jumping to scene 2, I'm going to jump to scene 3, the review scene. And I'm going to do that if the confidence level is less than 6. So now if it's 6 or above, it will bring me to the feeling confident scene. And if it is less than 6, it will bring me to the review scene. Okay. So this one, I'm just going to add a quick icon. So we'll add like an X is probably a little bit aggressive, but we're just going to do that anyway. Just because you get the idea with funding the graphics. I just want to kind of move fast here. So I'm going to align this over here. Let's see. I'm going to copy this text box onto this. Yeah, sorry to hear that you're not feeling very confident with the content. Take some time to review this lesson before attempting the final assessment. Make this a bit wider so it's not a widow. Let's align this to the center. Let's make this a bit bigger. And we'll also align this to the center and give it some space to breathe. Whoops. Okay, you get the idea. We'll probably have some sort of continue, but let's just say we're using some. So again, I'm just gonna, okay, wait. So you notice we have some padding here. I can't just align this to the left because it will align it to the left of the text box, and there's padding on the left, so it won't look aligned. So I'll just manually do this one by eye. We'll do continue. And now notice we need to align this whole thing to the center. Okay, and then we'll do the same. We'll get rid of these triggers. Oh no. This right here, guys, is why Storyline is not perfect. I might have just lost everything I've been working on. Let's see if there's a way to save. Yeah, you can't save. We're kind of just stuck here. Articulate Storyline had an error while we were doing this. So fun stuff, people. Oh, is it going to let us save? I think we're going to be able to save it. So all hope is not lost. But that is a very scary message to see. So okay, what is going on in here? Can we still edit this? This isn't looking too great over here. I'm just gonna try to keep editing it, I guess, and we'll see what happens. I'm just gonna change these to jump to the next slide as if it would be doing in a regular course, even though there isn't another slide. And notice that I do that. I quickly group these. I quickly group. I'll align it to the middle, and then I'll ungroup. I do that pattern so much to keep things aligned. And yeah, it's probably a little close to the edge of the screen. It's probably too close. But you get the idea. Let's see this thing in action, right? I'm sure we all want to probably see this work. So let's preview the project. If you copy and paste the submit button and change it to continue, yes, it brings the triggers with it. So you need to be careful. I think I was in the middle of updating this one. Yeah. So you can just click the slide. You can see the triggers it has. I'm going to do jump to slide, next slide. And I'm going to get rid of this confidence level thing right here. It's because we don't want that on the continue button. The last thing, I think we have a little bit of time, and I'll hang out a little after to answer those questions that I'm sure came up in the questions tab. I'm going to open the player right here, and I'm going to get rid of, you see right now our course is going to look like this. Like watch this. When I preview this entire project, we have this menu, we have all this stuff. I don't want all of that. I want this nice and simple. So I'm going to open the player. I'm going to go to colors and effects. I'm going to change this to the light player. So now it's white. I'm going to go back to menu. What do I want to do? I'm going to go to features, I'm going to turn off the menu, turn off the resources, turn off the title, just uncheck every single box on here. And finally, I'm just going to select all of these by holding down Control and clicking them. And I'm going to get rid of these next and previous buttons on the slides themselves. Okay, so that's a lot easier now to make the thing Chromeless. With their previous player, you had to do a lot more fidgeting around in the player settings to actually get rid of that. So, replay that if you need to, but you see now there's none of that extra border or menu or anything like that. So how confident do we feel? If we're feeling confident, here we go. It's time for the test. It looks great. Nice minimal design. That's kind of like what I like going for. Let's replay the project. Say we're not feeling confident. We're at 5. We're not quite making the cutoff. Oh no, we have to review the lesson. Okay? So that is my take at a quick slider interaction. Again, I did use a version of this on a project in the past just for, quick little bit of interactivity for a self-assessment. Do we want to jump right into the lesson or do we want to review a little bit? So I hope that was helpful. I think I'll stop sharing my screen now. But yeah, what do we think? Do we have any questions about that? Anything we want to look at further? I see there are a bunch of questions here. I think I'll give it a minute and see if anyone has any questions about what we just did. But then I'll answer some of these questions too. So definitely hang around. I think some of these will be might be helpful for some of you who are learning Storyline. And also, if anyone isn't interested in the answer to these questions, I do want to let you all know that next week at this same time slot, we're doing a session about freelancing with Tim Slade. So you probably know Tim Slade. He wrote the eLearning Designer's Handbook. He has an impressive portfolio and probably the biggest eLearning designer presence in the United States. So it's going to be an awesome Q&A session about freelancing and specifically moving from full-time to freelance. So you can sign up for that on my Crowdcast channel. I wanted to shout it out in case anyone's going to be dropping off. All right. What kind of light system do I have? Matt, I have these 2 LED lights right here, and you can see I can kind of turn them off. I just have a window over here, or I can make them go super bright and blind myself. So I just got a couple of LED lights. I have a full article about my recording setup. Maybe someone can link that in the chat. I think it's called My Pro video recording setup or something. Good question. But okay, so I want to dive into these questions now. I know that's what some of you are sticking around for. So Gina asks, I'm a grad student just starting to learn Storyline. How long did it take you to learn it? Gina, I learned Storyline as a grad student. Right when I started my master's program, I downloaded Storyline and I just used that tool for everything I could possibly use it for. We would get PowerPoint assignments. I would say, oh, can I make this a self-paced e-learning in Storyline? We would get an assignment, basically any assignment like that, I was trying to use Storyline. We would get infographic assignments and just use a quick online tool. I would say, oh, can I use Adobe Illustrator? So try to use Storyline at every opportunity you can. Your first couple of projects, it's going to be a learning experience. Try to dig into variables and conditions as early as you can. I mean, at this point, I've spent thousands of hours in Storyline, and I probably spent about 1,000 hours in Storyline by the time I graduated my master's program, just because I was constantly trying to do more stuff in Storyline. But I think you could get a pretty steep understanding of it, spending maybe, and this is like a lot, but even spending 100 hours in the tool, if you're actually diving into the variables, conditions, the different functionality, I think you'll be in very, very hireable and a very good spot, as long as you're intentional about how you're learning it, and not just like, downloading templates and filling in the text boxes. Try to actually build stuff yourself from scratch, because you're going to learn it a lot quicker, challenging yourself. So good question. All right, we have a question. Do I storyboard in Storyline? The answer to that is no. When I was first starting, I would just dive into Storyline and start building. And maybe depending on the slide or the project, maybe I'll do that. But I use Adobe XD to storyboard. I think that's what most people who are concerned with visual design do, because all the manipulations and the alignment, everything you saw me doing in Storyline, it's just that much easier. And some of the keyboard shortcuts in Adobe XD are just so much faster and better to use. So no, I use Storyboard in Adobe XD. It makes it really easy to design a screen, say, oh yeah, that sucks, kind of design a new screen, start from scratch. It's really good for this rapid prototyping of the screens. And then once I'm happy with how the screen looks, then I'll just export those assets or rebuild it exactly like it looks in Storyline. So Adobe XD is the storyboard tool. Shireen, best way to get experience using Storyline. I don't have any experience and don't know where I should start. Any recommended resources? Shireen, coming to sessions like this is probably a pretty good place to start. So thank you for joining here. I think one of my first projects was on the Articulate, like eLearning Heroes Challenges website. I don't know if that's still as popular, but they're probably still doing weekly challenges. Just look through the backlogs, find some kind of little interaction or challenge that gets you excited or motivated, and just try to build the thing in Storyline. Like I said, try to use conditions, give the user choices. That's the kind of stuff that makes e-learning more interesting when you use those variables to add meaningful choices, because otherwise you can just build the experience in PowerPoint. So challenge yourself, just spend as much time as you can building in the tool. It might not look great in the beginning, but that's okay when you're just trying to learn the tool. So good question. Cheryl asked a big question. What do your customers see as your unique business offering with e-learning? Why come to me when there are a million people who know Storyline and do e-learning development? So that is a good question, and probably could do a whole session on how to differentiate yourself in the e-learning space. I think clients come to me for many reasons at this point. I think they might come to me for that clean, minimal design, like what you saw in my project. I think that vibes well with like tech companies. And yeah, I mean, it's, again, when I got into this field, I didn't really consider myself like a visual designer, but you're kind of forced to pick up those skills along the way. And I think I'm a lot better at it now than I was years ago. But you can tell when you look at some e-learning and it just looks really dated or like it's from the 90s. I think a lot of companies don't really want e-learning like that. So working on visual design skills, at least, I think that's why a lot of people come to me. I think a lot of people come to me too because I'm good with the instructional design and the e-learning development. So it's really hard right now in the market to find people who are really good with the writing and the interviewing the subject matter experts, doing learning objectives, doing actual meaningful learning experiences, and having all of that, which is one very unique skill set, and then being able to couple that with a super technical skill set, knowing Storyline like the back of your hand, having visual design skills, and then being able to even do some coding to bring stuff a step further with XAPI or more custom interactivity. So I think that combination specifically is why I've been able to find success as a freelancer. So hopefully that doesn't discourage anyone. Like, yes, it's a lot to learn, but a lot of this I had to pick up. I think, my biggest strength was I came into this field as a really good writer. So being a good writer definitely helps a lot with instructional design. Good question. Well, I'm sure we can do more about that. Yes, the recording is available as soon as this is over. I'm sure that question got asked and answered in the chat, but just in case anyone was curious still. And I'm seeing some similar questions. Okay, Katie asked, where would I put an attribution in this module? So I actually did it in the resources tab, Katie, because again, I said those illustrations from Free Pick Stories. I had a resources tab where the client had some PDFs we linked out to, and then I just added illustrations by Free Pick, and when they click it, it will link out to Free Pick Stories. So I think that got the job done just fine. It's out of the way, but it's still there. Janine, you would have to change the aspect ratio to 16:9 every time you start a new project. And once you change that aspect ratio, it changes it for every slide in the project. Storyline isn't really responsive. You pick one slide size, and that's the only slide size you're going to get for the whole project. So that's why when you're starting a project, you do want to make that decision at the beginning. What kind of aspect ratio do I want to use? Katie asked, how do I do that transparent thing? Katie, I don't think I remember what this question is in reference to, but I will keep an eye on the chat once I get through all of these. Okay, how does Articulate 360 work with Storyline? Storyline is included. Let me start answering. Storyline is included in the Articulate 360 suite. So if you have Articulate 360, you just download Storyline and use it. All right. I think that covers most of the questions. Some of them maybe seem more about like personal feedback and stuff. And I think the other stuff was answered on the call. So thank you for everyone hanging out till the end. I will admit I haven't been keeping up with the chat while I was answering those. I think I'll hang out for a few minutes and just see what's been going on over here. Matt says the visual design aspect was the hardest piece for him to pick up, but the more you do it, the better it looks. Pro tip, steal ideas from dribble.com. 100% correct. Thank you, Matt. Again, it was hard for me too. Like my natural eye for design, I don't think was very good when I got into this field. My fiance and business partner, Taylor, I was constantly asking her to come and look at my stuff. And I still do that. I'm like, Taylor, how can I make this better? Because I think she has like a naturally better eye for design. And then some people in my master's program, I would ask for their feedback. So the other pro tip is just get feedback early and often. Ask people how they react to your designs. Because if you're just doing it in a vacuum in your room with your set of eyes on it, you're doing yourself a disservice. You need to get feedback on it. Like Matt said, look at dribble.com, look at modern tech websites and see how they lay out their website, how they do their spacing, buttons, padding, colors. All of that is very important. So yeah, good point, Matt. That is one of the most important skills you can learn if you're trying to get noticed in the corporate space or in the freelance space, because people are very visual creatures, and if they see your work and it doesn't look visually attractive, for better or worse, like you're not going to have the same opportunities as someone who does have visually appealing work. Even if your instructional content is amazing, it's just the way that the industry has been going. It's the world we're living in with instructional design. People want stuff that looks nice. All the other stuff super important too, if not more important from like actually helping people learn perspective. But if you want to get hired and you want to get work, you need that visual design piece down. So that's why I try to draw some attention to it in this session. Yes, I'm being a good writer. Victoria asks, are there any fellow teachers trying to become instructional designers? Victoria, I can tell you from the messages I get on LinkedIn and what I see on Reddit that is a fat yes. There is a massive amount. There are tons of teachers transitioning into instructional design right now. So I think you'll be in really good company. And could probably find a community of other teachers making that transition. Andy, I know there are some teachers who help a lot on Reddit and stuff who have made that transition to full-time instructional design. All right. Damien, wow, thank you for the kind words. One of the best sessions anyone could attend, huh? I appreciate that positive feedback. Thank you. The transparent box over the slider. Oh, okay. I don't know if I should share my screen again, but all you do is just add a rectangle over the slider and set the transparency to 100% and get rid of the outline. And it will be, it's just like a hotspot that you can't click on. So the person can't actually do anything under that slider. It's kind of like a mask so that people can't drag the slider themselves if you're using it for some sort of progress meter or, score indicator. I bet it does feel overwhelming. I know how overwhelmed I felt in the beginning. There are good communities out there. I have a Slack channel, so if you'll get an email a day after you sign up for this session to join my mailing list. And once you join that, you'll get an invite to my Slack channel. People ask questions there a lot, and there are a bunch of people here, just like there are in the chat, who are willing to help you find answers to your questions. So feel free to hop in there if you're looking for, to go through this with some people. There are people in there who've been doing this for 25 years, and there are people who are transitioning out of K through 12. So wanted to make sure I called that out in case anyone wasn't aware of that resource. All right. Please do more sessions like this. Yes, I am sure I will. I'm seeing more questions. I'm seeing some people drop off, but we still have a pretty decent audience here. So I got asked about accessibility. I haven't worked on projects with super strict accessibility requirements. I do work on the tab order and alt text. I know Storyline isn't as good as some other tools when it comes to accessibility. There are some general principles. We could probably do a whole session on that. If that is something people are interested in, maybe I should bring in an accessibility expert and do a Q&A event, because I do keep accessibility in mind, but I know if I need to keep it 100% to a T to some sort of accessibility standard, I'm probably going to need to do some research and talk to some consultants to figure that out. Katie Gibbs brought up the Non-Designer's Design book. Excellent book. That is the very book that I started with. It's where I learned about proximity, repetition, contrast, and alignment. Those 4 principles, that's what I've used to guide me all the way through now. It's still what I consider. So very, very good book, the Non-Designer's Design book. Thank you for bringing that up. All right, what do I think about volunteer opportunities to get ID skills? I think if it's a cause you're passionate about, or someone in your community who you're going to feel good helping, go for it. I don't think I've done a ton of volunteer work. I've done a lot of personal projects that I'm inspired by. I've done projects about veganism and stuff, and it's just my own, a little personal form of learning activism. But I think doing it with an actual organization could be good, especially if you can put it in your portfolio, because it would actually put you in front of a real world experience. When you talk to employers or clients, you can also actually talk about a real project you did for a client, even though you're not getting paid. Personal projects, it's just kind of up to you. You don't really have any other stakeholders unless you imagine them. All right, let's see. What else do we have? Share how I storyboard on Adobe XD. Yeah, I don't do anything crazy in XD. I'm sure in a future session, if we do one of these more visual options, we can start in XD, because I will be doing more workshops like this. So we can start in XD down the line if we do something more visual. But I don't do anything crazy in XD. All I'm doing is laying out the slide like I would in Storyline. It's just a bit easier. So maybe that would be another room where I want to bring in an expert who uses XD in really interesting ways. So Victoria jumped into learning about ID 3 months ago and feel like it's my whole life now. Victoria, that's how I felt, but I think it's been about 3 years for me now, and it still feels like it's my whole life in some ways. I mean, it's just always so much to learn, always. And lately I've been addicted to creating content and putting stuff out there for others. So I haven't had as much time for my own professional development, but I obviously learn researching and working on content. And I don't think that's going to change anytime soon, because I kind of love it. So welcome to being an instructional designer. Nicole says that her foot in the door was volunteer work and it turned into a paid job. So that's a nice little example. Yeah, Matt brought up a good point. This is a little specific, but it's you see in the beginning of this session, when we started in Storyline, we changed it to that 16:9 aspect ratio. If you're going to do your mock-up in Adobe XD, you have to make sure that Adobe XD slide is the same exact size as your Storyline slide. Because if your Storyline slide is a 4:3 aspect ratio and your Adobe XD file is widescreen, you're going to spend hours making it look great in Adobe XD. But when you try to transition it over to Storyline, it's not going to fit because the aspect ratio is wrong. So I was thinking about bringing that up earlier, Matt, but that is a good word of warning, or whatever you want to call it. So important. All right, I think I am officially caught up with the chat. We are only a few minutes over. Matt, how do you set that up? Do you go into Storyline first and then go back to XD? Matt, it depends. If I'm starting a project from scratch, I'll think about what kind of aspect ratio I want to use. If I'm gonna, like recently I started a project that has a lot of videos, but I also wanted this kind of heads up display beneath it. So in XD, I'll add the video aspect ratio, which is 6:9, and then I'll see how much space I want beneath that video for my heads up display and lay it out there. And then I'll look at the full height and width, and then I'll set that as my slide size in Storyline. So I hope that helps. And these are a bit more advanced questions. I'm sure they'll help other people here. And like I said, I'm sure we'll get more into Adobe XD and we'll cover all of this in a future session. All right, friends, I don't know what session I'm going to do the week after next. Maybe we'll do another story. Maybe I should just do another Storyline workshop and we'll build that drag and drop interaction from scratch. So let's say that. So in 2 weeks at the same time slot, we will do, so that will be November 5th. We'll do another Storyline workshop, and maybe I'll give some options. Maybe I'll do the same 3 options, but it looks like the drag and drop is definitely going to win. So you can probably count on us building that from scratch. And that will be a really good place to learn about layers and more about triggers and states. So we haven't gotten too into that yet, but some of these other projects will get us into that. So thank you everyone for sticking around. Reach out anytime. I have content on YouTube, my website, all over. Join the Slack channel if you wanna have a more casual place to communicate and ask questions. And I will hopefully see you all next week at that Tim Slade session. So thanks for hanging out to the end, and I will see you later. Bye-bye.